I love how new RPGs constantly challenge us with new ideas that change how we run the game. And today I'm going to talk about the technique I'm now using to track initiative in Draw Steel. I really dig what Draw Steel is trying to do with initiative, because it's trying to create a tactical game and encourage everybody to be feel good about what the choices they're making, right? That they're making optimal, smart choices. They want to empower you to say, hey, if you do this thing, then I can do this other thing, and that's going to be really cool, right? So the game is trying to allow for that. And if you have a strict initiative system as you do in D&D, then when the wizard says, I want to cast a fireball, but you already ran up there, now I can't, right? Because you went first. Well, that's not as much fun in a highly tactical situation. To change that up, what Draw Steel does is it says, all right, let's first figure out who's going first. Maybe it's obvious because the scene started with us launching an ambush, or we were in a negotiation, I just decided to attack, or they decided to attack, right? So it might be obvious, or we might just roll a d10. And if whoever rolled got a 6+, well, they get to go. That side gets to go. And then it's a variant of sort of side initiative, right? And this is where one side gets to go, then the other, and then back and forth like that. But within, there is no initiative order. So let's say that the players get to go first. The first hero who should go, and the players get to decide. Let me go first because I can do this thing that's going to boost what you're about to do, and then it'll be even stronger, right? So that character goes first. The enemy gets to take one turn, and then the next person can go and launch their synergy. There are even some classes that can do some fun things to jump in and actually go before the director gets to go. Director is the name for GM or DM in the game. And so that's what we're doing. We're alternating sides. And what ends up happening is very good in terms of tactics. But what I've seen when I'm running Draw Steel is that the players will all go oh, which of us should go? And they'll actually forget who has already gone. So every time it's like they look at all of each other to determine who will go, which is very natural to do because they want to collaborate. But the truth is that maybe half the party has already gone already. And there isn't a good visual normal cue for that. So you spend more time than necessary. In fact, the funniest thing is when one person's like, who should go? And everybody goes, you, because you're the only person who hasn't gone, right? And we're just burning a few extra seconds on that takes away from the fun and the excitement that we want to have. On the director's side, the director could also forget which of their monsters they've used, and they're looking at all the stat blocks or all the minis and trying to think about what to do. And so you want a way that the director remembers who has taken their turn and who hasn't. You also have not great feedback of, especially when you have a lot of minis, are they grouped up or not? And so having something that communicates a bit like there are 3 groups of monsters is actually really helpful for the players in forming their tactics. So I tried a couple of different techniques. The first thing I tried to do is I just took a small stand that I had that was very low and could hold a card in it. And I just took some cards I had. In fact, I used Tom Nelson's The Deck of Player Safety. And I just took a card that was, a pretty back versus the text, right? And I said, okay, if the back is facing, then that means you haven't gone yet. If the other side, then it means you have, right? So this was my early attempt to say, I've gone or haven't gone. And I don't know if it was because the cards weren't intended for this or, if it was something else, but really it didn't super work. Players would kind of forget to put them down or flip them. And I felt like I had to be on top of that. And so I felt like I was being their parent, telling them oh, but don't forget, flip your card. And so it wasn't as usual, as effective as it could have been. The other thing is generally people are looking towards the DM. So I felt like if I could have controlled something, it might have been better. Also, I wasn't using anything for my monsters. And so there was no information going to them about that. It wasn't a central system. It was just them with these cards that they would sometimes remember to flip. A friend of mine did, thanks Kevin, pick up a couple of options. We looked at some chalkboard signs. And so these are little tents that you could write go, done, something like that. We also got some little stands that could lift cards up higher. And we thought, well, we could put maybe a card with the artwork. And that wasn't bad. I could have done that, but it maybe actually takes a little more real estate up than I want. And so what I ended up doing was I just sat around one day thinking what could I do, right? What could be visual, easy, And what I decided is I started thinking about, like, what if you had like little switches and you could flip them up or down, but you need a way to know which character. And then I said, okay, I think I have an idea. This may not work. And I'm sharing it because it did work. It worked really well. It's really fun. And it was not expensive or hard to make. Often when, I do projects, I try something and I got to go back to the hardware store or buy another thing, or no, this worked right off the bat. The idea worked. And so I'm sharing with you. And what it is I happen to use a wooden DM screen. But you could do this without this. So what I've got in my wooden DM screen is it's a flat top. And I put a metal strip along that flat top. And then I have magnetic hinges on top, plastic hinges, a little magnetic strip that sticks to the metal. So this means I can just put a character worth of hinge there, or I can put a monster on a hinge, or I can put an event or a trap or an NPC, and I can flip them down or flip them up, right? They haven't gone or down when they have gone. And that way, the players can look at me and see that which characters have not gone, which monster groups have not gone. And if there's something like an NPC or some other, trap event or something like that, they can see that as well. This system has worked really well. So if you play a lot of Draw Steal or a game that similarly uses side initiative, I highly recommend looking at something like this. I did it on top of a wooden DM screen, but you could just do it by having a wooden strip that you put the metal bar on, and you just need something wide enough that it's not going to tip over, right? And then you could just have that in front of you, just down on the ground. If you don't like using a DM screen, you could just have on the table, wooden strip, metal bar, and put it there. The other option you could do is put metal on the bottom of the hinges and then have the magnetic strip down on the ground. I thought and still think it actually works better to have the magnet on the hinges. So that's the way that I went. So let me tell you how I did it. So to make this, I picked up a bunch of different things. First thing I did was get the metal bar, right? So I looked at the top of my wooden DM screen and measured it. For me, it was 3/4 of an inch. So I got something that was a little more narrow than that. I think my bar was a 1/2 inch steel bar. I just got it at a hardware store, and you can cut it into sections. My DM screen has 3 different sections, so I cut it into those sizes. 2 were 9 inches long, and 1 was 18 inches long. So I just cut it with a hacksaw, metal bar, hacksaw, cut it. And then I fixed it with double-sided tape, just in case I want to remove it. It's easy, but I could have used wood glue. So that's the wooden bar. Then I bought some clear plastic hinges. And if you go to alphastream.org, you can find my blog about how I made this. You can see pictures of the process that I'm showing you now, but also links to items you can buy, though you could buy different items from different sites. So I got the bar from my hardware store. I bought some clear plastic hinges online. I got them so that they were about 1 inch wide. That was, to me, the right number of things that I wanted to fit on top of my screen. And again, if I'd been using a wooden platform down on the table, I could have maybe gone with a larger size. So you could think about how large you want them to be compared to the pictures that I've got here and go with a different size. Then I needed a roll of magnetic tape. So I got a 1/2 inch wide roll of magnetic tape. And that magnetic tape can be cut with scissors, which is pretty nice, and it's adhesive on one side. So I would just cut them to be just shy of 1 inch long, and then I would just stick it to the bottom of the hinge. And the hinges can fold one way so they're flat, and then another way so they're about 75-degree angle, 60-degree angle, something like that. And so I did it so that they would stick in that open angle, right? I didn't want them to be shut together. So I set them so that they're partially open, put the adhesive and the magnet on one side, and then the other side, I would stick the information to it, right? So the way I did that for the information is I really just went into Word, created a table, and Word allows you to do things where you have the text flipped so it's sideways. And so you could do it sideways one way, sideways the other. And that made it so when I printed it out, I could cut it out and fold it, and it's legible from both sides, right? I made specific ones for each hero because I know who's in my party, the party members. And then I made numbers for monster groups. That way it doesn't matter what monster I have. It's just group 1, group 2. That gives that information to the players of how many groups there are, how many when they've been defeated, and then some extra things like NPC 1 and NPC 2, and things like events. I'd made that and a couple extra things, and I may make more over time with some additional options. But then it was just printing out that on cardstock, but paper would have worked too. I used double-sided tape again here to stick onto each side, and then just press that against the hinge that doesn't have the magnet on it. And boom, you've got a magnetic little flip item that you could put there, right? A little flip card that goes into the I'm ready to go or I've already gone. And that worked really well. Now you could use other techniques, right? You could use smaller stands or some of the things that I shared earlier that could work in terms of just having them on the ground. But to me, that created a lot of clutter and wasn't as easy visually to have it all set up in one nice line. I liked it being on the top of my screen. So there it is. I hope you like my technique. If you end up using it, let me know. I'm curious how many folks will go out and do it. I hope it doesn't look hard. It actually was really easy. I got it done in an incredibly short amount of time. Didn't take long at all to do this. The bar was easy to cut with hacksaw. It was easy to affix. It really, honestly, I'm shocked at how well it went compared to most homeowner projects that I take on. This was a walk in the park. So if you do try it and end up using it, let me know. If you are interested in initiative techniques and play other games, check out my other video where I talk about what I do for Dungeons & Dragons based on technique by Paul Lopper Ellison. I love initiative. I love thinking about how to do it well and how to have the game run faster and smoother, to keep all the players engaged, have them know when their turns are coming up. So I love techniques like this. And if you use something else for RPGs, I'm curious to hear what they are. I'm still thinking about how I might change my approach to tracking initiative for Daggerheart, as well as for games like the Freely games like Blade Runner and Alien, which use cards. I'm never quite satisfied with the card system because it's down, so I could put it on stands. I don't know. Anyway, I'm thinking about it. So if you come up with something there, please share it with me. I'd love to see what people are doing for other types of RPGs. And if you enjoyed this video, first, you can join me in giving thanks to the people who make this possible, who support me. You can go to alphastream.org if you are so inclined and help support me as well. The folks on Patreon make this possible, and we have an awesome community there. I would love for you to be a part of it. And until then, I will see you next time.